26% of the money must be paid back. So $7 billion went directly to Southwest to assist their operations. Still, there are questions about where that money went. So to talk about all the troubles here at Southwest and solving the world's problems, Ohio Republican Congressman Brad Wenstrup. Now, thank you for joining me. First of all, Congressman, let's talk about Southwest. You know, all the airlines are dealing with weather issues, while the other major carriers seem to get things sorted out on the second day. The situation at Southwest seemed to get worse. What do you make of it?
Well, obviously, it's a very, very significant problem. I've been fortunate. I usually am flying Delta and American and haven't run into those types of problems, and made it home for the holidays from D.C. You know, the complaints that we're hearing about are, you know, with the refunds, for example, you know, by law, they're required to make the refund almost immediately for people. And, you know, but you mentioned it, $54 billion from the federal government to the airline industry. So where did that money go? And I know it was pandemic related, and they say that was to keep themselves afloat. But that's a lot of money. And Southwest, like you just said, $7 billion themselves since 2020. Right. So what were you doing with it? And, you know, we're hearing labor shortage, this and that. Well, that should be fairly predictable. Look, the industry is a tough industry, no doubt about it. It's a lot of maneuvering, but they seem to have had it mastered pretty well over the years. The storm probably had something to do with this, but we've got to take some action in Congress and get some oversight and investigate some of this. The U.S. Department of Transportation needs to investigate, but so do we. And I know that Congressman Garrett Graves is going to lead some of that, and we're going to look at the whole consumer experience, because that's really what it comes down to.
And that's what I want to talk to you about, that consumer experience, because under current law, weather doesn't give customers any recourse for something like this. And that's what Southwest is saying started all of this. Does something need to change for passenger compensation then?
Yeah, I think there has to be some type of plan B. You know, we do pretty well with predicting this storm. We knew for a week, right? So there should have been some alternatives in mind, and people should have maybe made some alternative plans, but that should have been aided by the airlines themselves that were actually taking your commitment to a ticket. So these things need to be looked at, but I don't know. This might be the worst example we maybe have ever seen, and it seems like it was a domino effect, that as one thing faltered, it just kept getting worse and worse for them, and then worse and worse for the customer, clearly. And we need to get to the bottom of it. And a lot of money comes from taxpayers for these airlines to stay afloat and to keep America moving and allow for travel and business and everything else that they got to be able to answer to it.
Now, Congressman, I want to get this in. You're a doctor and part of the doctors' caucus in Congress. The White House says that President Biden briefly brought up the origins of COVID with President Xi during their meeting in November, talking about transparency in general. Here we are 2 years later. Should we know exactly what happened and how COVID came about, or does it matter by now?
Oh, it matters. It matters. And I'm on the Intelligence Committee and leading the investigation for origins of COVID for our committee. You know, COVID was devastating, and the intelligence community is not sharing a lot of information. They seem to ignore key evidence. A lot of this is open source evidence, and they seem to ignore it. We have oversight over them. We've got to get to the bottom line of all this. Look, certainly we have an interest in potential bioweapons, and certainly we have an interest in lab safety, even in China, because of what could possibly happen if something gets out. And the intelligence community just came out and said, well, we have broad agreement that this was not a bioweapon. And they don't say at what level of confidence they have. They don't answer our questions as far as why they're coming up with this conclusion. We also know that, you know, people that are coming out, scientists that are coming out and saying that it was coming from the wet market. Well, they have a motive. They have a motive because they were doing research in chimeras, and they were doing it with China.
And that's
Chimera is that gain of function.
And in the last 30 seconds that we have, Congressman, I wanted to ask you, do we need to subpoenas then to the intelligence agencies? You know, that Republican report that came out yesterday saying there could possibly be a connection to a Chinese biomilitary operation or lab related to COVID, and that's how it got out. Should there be subpoenas to get these intelligence officers to clear the air on what the U.S. believes happened?
Well, I think there's going to have to be, because they're not answering the questions that we're asking specifically voluntarily. So we're going to have to go to subpoenas. And we have a long list of people that we are ready to talk to. Some may come in voluntarily, but a lot of others, we're probably going to subpoena them, and they need to hold on to all their records.
Congressman, thank you very much. This is